Hello and welcome to This Contains Garlic. You are here with your host Georgia Garlic
Mark Garlic,
and we are back for episode 3
third
today.
one, third one. Here we go. I think today what we're going to be covering is building muscle and the importance of building muscle.
And also um, why not to underestimate your strength, because we very much feel like a lot of people do that. They never really value themselves that highly when it comes to their strength, and that kind of can impact obviously their progress and performance going forward. So first things
I
first.
feel like just to kick things off and open a discussion around building muscle, would you say there are negative connotations towards building muscle with the fact that most people feel like they're going to get bulky, they're going to lose some form of athleticism or mobility in a way like it's going to negatively impact them in a certain way?
Yeah, I think those have slightly changed over the years. I think in terms if you're talking on a female side, I would say that that still very much echoes through the industry in the sense of I guess when you look at the industry, you're always looking at the pinnacle of it, aren't you? And
Yeah,
I think those people are always going to be the ones that carry more muscle mass. And
sure.
for so many people, I think men as well. I'm sure. I mean, who did you look up to when you were a
Oh,
bodybuilder?
growing up,
Let's
just the
guess.
traditional, yeah, the
Let's have a
traditional
look. What's his name?
bodybuilders,
Arnold.
Schwarzenegger,
Is it actually Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger,
Okay.
Schwarzer something or other. Yeah, the traditional men's muscle magazine is what generally enticed me as a young impressionable
Where'd you buy
teenager.
that in Zimbabwe?
The flea market,
The flea
Addendale.
market.
Not even at a, we didn't even have bookstores. Flea market.
I was allowed to go to the corner shop every weekend and buy
I
a
think you used to
magazine.
pay, this was before hyperinflation, you paid 50 US dollars.
What, for a man with some
No,
muscles on the
50 Zim
front?
dollars, sorry, yeah.
That's kind of
Second
sad,
hand,
isn't it?
second hand
Yeah. I'm just going to
magazines.
buy a magazine that's
Yeah.
just full of stacked
And
dudes.
yeah, that, well, I guess at that
What did you
age it's
do? Stick
either,
them on your wall?
no, not quite, not
I don't know.
quite.
I don't think we should really go down this path. I feel like it could go like the wrong
No, but
way.
it's like you said, everybody kind of fixating over the pinnacle when it comes to muscle building, and there is generally sometimes a bit of a negative connotation towards being muscular or wanting to achieve a muscular physique.
I think though
Um,
that like the beginning of muscles really came about when like I guess steroid use was also highly exaggerated. I mean, you always looked at like in the news, you always saw that like bodybuilders died, and
and they
all of
still,
these,
to a certain degree,
yeah,
are.
because they're the other extreme, I guess. To
That's that some could argue cases of abuse, but I guess that's another conversation for
yeah,
another
that's quite
day.
deep. But anyway, I mean,
Um,
going back to who you used to idolize in the sense of building muscle, you were kind of always looking at magazines.
yeah,
So I feel like those magazines always highlight the top, as we always say, 1%. I don't even think it's
sure.
1%. I generally think it's like
Yeah,
0.01%.
even
And
smaller
so you're
amounts.
always thinking, oh God, is that going to be me? And then I guess for female magazines, you're always looking at somebody with like a sweatband around their
Yeah,
head and
like a
like a
bikini or
leotard. Yeah.
a bikini athlete or a, something in that
I
realm.
still think it's only just literally, I reckon, in the past year. I actually really think in the
Mm,
past year have people actually really clocked on to strength training and building muscle.
sure.
That's quite a big
It's
statement to
slowly
make because we've been in
becoming
the
more and
industry for
more structured,
ages,
yeah.
but I think, yeah, I mean, it's been brought up in so many ages it being beneficial as well. I think this is one another thing. Before it used to be, oh, it's a physique thing,
Yeah,
when actually now it's about how does
so
this
much
improve
more.
your quality of life?
I guess that's what we also need to touch on is, I mean, obviously starting off in the industry quite young, in the sense that we were both quite young when we first started, and it is quite for a vanity, or there's some level of vanity to obviously looking a certain way. Um, but I think once we moved to Cape Town and we opened the gym, and we started to deal with a
Yeah,
little
I
bit of
think
an
our
older
clientele
demographic,
changed. Yeah, our
did
clientele
we
changed.
start to really catch on to, okay, this is more than looking a certain way. This is more about preserving your quality of life as you get older, not when you're 50. We're talking about 60s,
Yeah, I
70s.
think like going off what Mark said, like I mean, we used to train in London. We used to have clients that were older, but it was very much the few percent. I mean, I guess the age range we used to deal with was probably like mid 20s to
Yeah,
like 40s, sort of
yeah,
like
at a
vibe
push.
at a push. I mean, like
Yeah,
obviously we had older clients, and
yeah,
dotted around, but I think when we did start to deal with those that came in with years and years of, I guess, pain related stuff,
yeah,
injuries, made a tennis injury 30 years ago and still hadn't addressed it.
sure.
Things like this. So we started to realize that actually it's just not highlighted enough for
Yeah.
those, I guess, those getting older, but also preparing yourself
Mm.
for the fact that when you do age, unfortunately, it's not that great, I
No.
guess,
And
but you can make it really great
you
if you
can.
give yourself a good foundation.
You can. And it's never too late to start either. Like we've had loads of clients that have never strength trained or done any form of formal or structured exercise and have started in their 50s and 60s and
70s.
their 70s and have gotten to a point where they're in the best shape of their lives, even compared to when they were 20.
Yeah, it's
So,
crazy actually.
that's basically starting an entire journey, even though
I mean,
later on in life you can regain some youthfulness in the sense
yeah.
of maintaining joint mobility, maintaining overall body composition and muscle mass.
I do think you just look radiant as well. I don't really like that word. It sounds like a bit like
Yeah.
a moisturizer advert. But
Yes.
I do feel like when you bring out your strengths constantly or consistently, I should say, you do just shine slightly differently to when you don't, I guess.
I think
That
there's
sounds
also
weird,
a
but
level of internal and psychological confidence when it comes to being strong and having
yeah,
above
I mean,
average amounts of
there
muscle
are things
mass.
you need to think about when it comes to like building muscle because number one, building muscle is a very hard goal. At the start, for beginners, those not used to training in a way, you can see some huge progress very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But for some people like us, like if we had a goal of building muscle now, and keep on building muscle, I
Yeah,
mean, we not
it's
only
very
have to
slow.
match our nutrition, really, really closely to that goal,
Yeah.
but we've also got to train a lot harder.
Yeah, it's all about stimulus at the end of the day. Your body's constantly in a level of adaptation. It's never stagnant. So whatever stimulus you provide to the body, your body will then have to adapt towards that stimulus. So if you're constantly weight training in a progressive manner, your body is going to want to build lean muscle tissue
Yeah.
on your body.
And it will always be better when, obviously, like as we said, like nutrition is matched. I mean, people obviously bang on about protein. I find that, like, as much as protein is so beneficial and we all should be eating enough of it, I do think it's the most over marketed. I mean, like, majority
Yeah.
of protein products these days don't even contain that much protein.
I guess you got to
It's
define what you like. A protein pancake that's got like 4 grams of protein per pancake.
versus just eating a whole
Is
food where you
that
don't need the.
is that protein? Not
Not
really.
really. Like, how many of those do you need to eat
Yeah.
to literally sustain your daily calorie? Quite a lot of
Yeah.
pancakes, which is not a bad thing. Pancakes
Yeah.
are great. But also, it's just, I guess, the quality of your protein matters when it comes to building muscle as well. And also being consistent. This is the thing, like, unless you are a beginner and you see those results very quickly, most of the time it can be quite a, I guess, what's the word, slog to building muscle. Like you need to be prepared to potentially put on body
Yeah.
fat
A little bit of
alongside
body
it a
fat,
little
which
bit. Obviously, you want to minimize that.
a lot of people are not too interested in hearing that they're going to put
On weight, yeah.
weight or put on body fat when it comes to a personal journey. I feel like we are so stuck in a diet culture narrative of consistently wanting to lose weight or consistently being in a calorie deficit,
Yeah.
that, going the other way into a surplus. As coaches, and I'm sure Georgia can attest to this, when we reverse diet clients or take clients in the
What's a
opposite
reverse diet,
direction.
quickly?
A reverse diet is basically after a long period of dieting or some form of calorie restriction, you then slowly add calories back into your diet to then try and build or manipulate your overall metabolic rate.
Okay, good
So
explanation. That was like a
just
little bit of
going
a
very
snippet just
slowly.
back onto what reverse
Yeah,
diets
just
are.
adding calories back into your diet slowly so that you can build a metabolic rate.
But there is also this thing where, like, when you see somebody that has a lot of muscle mass, forget those that are very, very lean all the time. We're
Yeah.
talking about those that actually have substantial muscle mass. They have done periods where they've had to make themselves, I guess, in some way uncomfortable with the way that they felt, because
Yes.
that in a way is slightly required if you've got a very serious training goal. If you are general population, we find the best actual part for building muscle is probably maintenance for a lot of people, because if their training is correct, and the stimulus is correct and provided to
Yeah.
them, adequately,
Yeah.
that maintenance is actually all that's really needed for a general population client.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Or if you're looking to build muscle, a very small
Yeah.
calorie surplus of between 100 to 300 calories on top of your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure.
Yeah, and I think also being able to, like, as we said, like the macro composition of your meals then starts to come into play a little bit more. Like when you're trying to lose fat, we never really advise to then be building muscle. Again, it's
Kind of
different,
counterproductive.
counterproductive, but also it's different for if we're talking in a more progressed stance rather than a beginner's
Yeah.
stance. I think
I think we need to clarify, like, if you're starting off, exercising is probably the first 3 to 6 months, or you're going to see the most exponential growth and progress if you are consistent enough and
yeah.
adherent enough. That first 12 months when you're introducing new stimulus to your body is the quickest time that your body will probably transform over the entire period. And the longer you walk down that road of personal
I guess
enhancement, growth, personal
enhancements.
growth, your personal journey, it gets harder and harder to, like Georgia said, to get 1 pound of muscle, or to get leaner, or to get stronger in certain movements. You are literally slogging away to
Yeah.
get bare minimum results.
Well, that's a really negative.
No, yeah,
Shows that
okay.
you get
Not bare
absolutely
minimum.
fuck all.
Yeah,
Like,
not
literally,
bare minimum,
no,
but
but
you
like
know
it
what I
takes a
mean, the
period of
context of
time,
it,
and it's if you're wanting that, if you're wanting to push it to the higher end of the scale, then you need to be prepared to obviously make a sacrifice and realize that you might be used to being slightly leaner or whatever, but if you want substantial muscle and you want to be able to maintain it, then you need to obviously adapt calories and whatnot to match with that, and also adjust your protein requirements, because protein to us is obviously the most important macro, but also when it comes to building muscle, it is one of these things that if you aren't eating enough protein, you will end up with, I guess, not the same result as what you're, I guess, expecting, going off of our managing expectations conversation.
Yeah, you need to have your ducks in a row when it comes to these things. And like Georgia said, hitting macros like protein and things like that is very difficult. It's not easy. You have
The
to
higher end of the scale, like, don't ever think that like it's suddenly just super easy for you to be able to adhere to these targets and stuff, because reality is if you're not super serious about it, then maybe you should step back and think, okay, what should this goal really be? But if you are super serious about it, then it's not easy getting your protein targets unless you just love eating protein, which some people do, I guess.
Yeah, to a certain degree but let's be honest, out of all the people that we've dealt with, we would say nutritionally when it comes to all the targets. That's probably one of the hardest people get,
I would actually say,
hardest to
I'd
hit.
confidently say, I have never worked with anyone that's eating enough protein at the start.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that statement. And that's purely because people are
Yeah, I mean,
unaware of the
it's also the
protein.
like cuisines of the world. Like some cuisines of the world don't necessarily encourage sources of protein in their foods, and that's also something. And also availability. You know, protein can be bloody expensive, especially all the supplementation with it as well. And that's where I think a lot of people find.
I think the supplementation's really overrated in terms of taste and overall.
I would say I've eaten like a couple of protein bars in my life that are
Yeah,
actually
there's some
like.
tasty protein bars.
Are they tasty or do they
I
taste a
personally
little bit
like
like
the
off
grenade
caramel?
ones. The grenade
Grenade
ones
are
are
good.
okay.
I mean, they're going to, in my opinion, they're probably the best tasting you're going to get, but that's also
Yeah,
personal
yeah,
taste. And sometimes they can be really sweet, and loads of people have said, that's like
yeah. I
eating.
think it's personal taste.
But it's also like, is that in a, for example, building muscle goal? Like, would you choose a protein bar over potentially like a whole
I
food
guess
source or food volume, which is
if
going to
you want to go
actually.
into the weeds, you would have a certain amount of your calorie intake portioned or budgeted towards what are known as like convenience based foods, where are like you
What,
easy
like
to
your
grab, like pret a manger or a
pret a mange?
pret a manger.
Fucking what the fuck?
Uh,
Pret a mange.
yeah,
Do you
you
even
know, I
know?
like my French accent.
No, honestly, this is actually just embarrassing. If
Ever since
anybody's
we've
from
been
France,
to
listen to this.
France, coming from South Africa, I'm basically
You're not from South Africa.
we were moved from South
Oh,
Africa.
you did move
We
to
did.
France. And then we went to
We didn't move to
France.
France. We moved to the UK.
Where have you lived in the world, Mark?
Where have I lived in the world?
Zimbabwe
Zimbabwe,
and just the UK.
South Africa,
Oh
and
yeah.
the
Oh my
UK.
God, just forget the last like
Yeah,
few years of my life.
traumatizing. Keith,
Anyway,
I blame Keith.
oh yeah, blame Keith. Keith's probably definitely not listening to this. To put into context, Keith was our previous neighbour in Cape Town, and all I can say is we did never saw eye
We
to
could
eye
have
with
made
Keith.
we could have made it onto an episode of Nightmare Neighbours.
Yeah, and that's not from our side, that's from his. You just don't even want to know.
Yeah,
Let's just put it this way, Keith didn't eat enough protein, definitely
he
not.
certainly didn't.
And he had minimal muscle
He
mass.
did. Yeah,
But he liked to be topless 24/7, wearing a
with his
pair of
cowboy
shades and a
hat,
cowboy hat. God, anyway.
screaming at his wife.
Yeah, oh God, let's not go down that route. Anyway, back to building
Yes,
muscle and everything that
sidetrack.
comes with it. I think now, obviously, we were going to talk about, what were we going to mention?
The main thing that we should cover are obviously like how do you build muscle, and then is there obviously a difference between building muscle when it comes to men and women, and
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I mean, that's something we should definitely speak about now. Actually, I
yeah.
think
But
gender.
let's cover how do you build muscle, and how do you go about building muscle, and what lifestyle and self-care habits do you have to set up in your day-to-day regime to set you up for the biggest chance to achieve that goal.
I think we'd start with, I would say first and foremost. I mean, I could say training, but I'd actually like to say sleep.
Okay.
I think that, well, funny this, because a lot of people bang on about sleep now.
Sure.
When did this come about that suddenly sleep was important? I'm not really sure. Because it suddenly it
Couple of
went from
years
like,
ago.
it's cool not to sleep to being
We're
like,
running out of
please go
fads to
sleep.
market in this industry, so we're just cycling through basically everything.
Yeah, don't go to sleep, wake up, do go
Yeah.
to sleep, like, literally.
Yeah.
I'd say that without good quality sleep or a conscious, I guess, what I'd like to say is actually you're consciously thinking that you want to get a good night's sleep, you're going to very much halt any progress due to both the, I guess, problems it causes. What problems? I mean, with nutrition, it definitely causes havoc. But with training, obviously, then recovery ends up being limited, and your training sessions are not going to be as good.
Are going to be hampered from being tired, obviously, and
Yeah.
not recovering and being sore and DOMS and
Yeah, do you know what DOMs are? Delayed what?
onset muscle soreness or
Well done, Mark.
stiffness. I can't remember which one it is.
Oh my
It's
God, how
roughly
can
the-
you just get that wrong?
Well, I didn't get it wrong. It's
I
either
didn't get it
or.
right. I didn't get it wrong. Oh, it's something. I think it must be. Yeah,
One of the two.
one of the two.
So yeah, leading on to that, like if you're not sleeping, then you
Good.
can't
Yeah.
train hard, and then obviously that moves into the second thing. Obviously, your training needs to be hard. It can't just be easy. It can't.
Yeah, it can't just like you can't be working at like a 4 out of 10 or a
No,
6 out of 10. You've got to be working up at like
8 out of
literally
10.
8 to 10 out of 10.
Well, I mean, some of the recent studies say that you can work within a relative perceived exertion, which is basically a sliding scale 1 to 10 of effort. Between
Yes.
6 and 8 is
I mean,
apparently
look,
the
we've also
sweet
got to talk
spot.
about that. What is this? Like, it's not really that relative to anybody because it's
Yeah,
different for each individual
each
going through.
person is
So,
obviously
like, you
different.
can't. I do like a scale, obviously. Everybody loves a sort of like up down motion, like, But at the end of the day, it does come down to you, like,
Yeah, you need
and
to
what
work.
goes
There
on.
needs to be some level of effort and intensity placed onto the muscle to force the muscle to adapt.
Like, for example, if you're a beginner, like you're not going to be pushing for, you'd be pushing to the higher RPE, but that might be higher in the sense of weight wise that I could
Sure,
lift versus
sure.
what a beginner potentially could lift.
Yeah.
It's just relative to obviously you
The
as a
person, the
person.
individual.
So, pushing for max amount of weight if you're a beginner, probably not that
No.
advised,
So,
but
but like
it's,
you said, like we said, with regards to the literature, yeah, I know you don't like me using that word.
I
The
think literature is
studies,
so boring.
you
I
know,
don't know
you
what
could
it is.
start at 6 out of 10 when
Did you
you
know I
are.
got an A star for English lit at school?
Well,
Anyway, my mum
I
would be proud
certainly
of me.
didn't.
Yeah, you certainly did. I have no idea how I did that unless I by mistake mixed up the exams. Who knows? Going on from spelling, if you've ever
My
seen our spelling
spelling's
mistakes,
atrocious.
you know what? I'm going to bring it up on here. I hope they're not listening. Maybe they are. I'll never forget getting a comment on Instagram. And
Oh
it was
yes, from a
like a
linguist.
linguist. And
Like,
this is when we first started pumping out like what you could call as infographics, and like we're very creative in the way that we do it. We always try to do something a little bit different, but sometimes spelling, like when you've looked at something you've spent loads of time just like
sure.
researching, making sure, putting it together, like you can miss those like really common spelling mistakes.
Yeah.
And this woman commented saying like, I love your work, but it's painful it's painful to see that you spelt it there and not they are, like literally. And I just was like,
Yeah,
well,
that.
that's that then. That's my whole
Yeah,
career
super
done.
disheartening. You're like,
You're like,
delete.
fuck's sake, delete. I hate my life.
Throw
Like,
your phone
I
into the
hate
toilet.
social media. Yeah,
Yeah.
literally. Like, why does this exist? But no, I'll never forget that spelling. Back from the literature. What does the literature read, Mark? The literature doesn't read anything.
No, you've thrown me off. I'm just thinking of all the horrible things people have said to us over the years. I'm
Oh,
going.
do you know, we're going to go down a social media rabbit hole.
Yeah, we
If you've ever
definitely
been
need
horrible
to
to
be.
us. No, we haven't.
If you've ever been
Look,
horrible to
no,
us, we remember.
you are.
Yeah.
The thing is with social media, just a little bit of a sidetrack, is that 90 if you're in our industry and you choose the route like we did, which was to not show ourselves as much, you're then kind of just being judged on your information. I hate the word judge, but that is genuinely social media. It's like you're on
Yeah.
a pedestal to some degree.
Yeah.
I do think that, when a lot of people think different things in our industry, and that's when the fuckery of social media begins, when somebody doesn't agree with your information because they think something else. That's literally what
Yeah,
it is.
or it's based off their own personal experience of, oh, something worked for me.
Oh,
So
yeah.
by you saying that it doesn't work, you're not right because it worked for me. So
You know what? I will just say this. Sometimes you can literally just want to turn your phone off because you're like, do you know how qualified we actually are? Like, literally,
Yeah.
I don't want to be a massive twat about this, but sometimes when people write who are not qualified or have no experience of dealing with other people, you do just think like, okay, cool, we'll just advise on everything these days. Like, let's pick like the topic that I like
Yeah.
least interested in and I'll just jump in with my advice.
Yes.
That's what I think is a very big problem with social
Yes.
media. But I don't think many people have been horrible to us. We've had a few like really dicky
no,
comments.
yeah, you do, and generally it's just from a throwaway fake account or an
Yeah,
angry
normally
man.
these people either like know of you or like it's just a very weird thing. Like people do set up a lot of fake accounts, and that's
There's
also
been quite a few, hate to say it, quite stereotypical short men as well.
oh, that's a very big statement to
There have
make.
been,
There have been
there
though.
have been.
I have to say that like I just feel like as women we just listen and care a little bit more. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of women that think they're fucking right the whole time, which is obviously me being one of them. Joking, you know. But there are a lot of men where I just think like,
Put a pin in it.
yeah, yeah. I'm not going to get into that subject because we could be a
Yeah,
all
let's circle
feminist
back to
guy.
actually
Let's
what
go back to
we.
building muscle.
So training, nutrition,
We haven't really mentioned,
effort.
yeah, effort. This is another thing.
But yeah, so leading on to nutrition, when it comes to, it's very different for men and for women. Women go through hormonal changes
Big conversation
through the
needed.
month, and as Georgia will explain to you, as you go through those fluctuations, your desire to consume protein or
Oh,
nutrient
reduces.
dense meals and things like that do alter as you go through
Massively so. And like
changes.
again, another thing that you can't really just pinpoint on like this X, Y, and Z because my symptoms be very different to a lot of other people's symptoms. Some people don't get them at all. Some people get every fucking symptom under the sun. Some people choose to avoid all of that topic altogether. But I think when it comes to like your period every month, like for some reason it's always a surprise. Like literally, I'm sure for my husband as well, it's like a raging. Like it's never pleasant. That's when we won't have a podcast. Is that week? Literally.
When there's silence.
In silence, we don't talk to each other. No, but I think for nutrition wise, your taste buds change, around the start of your period or before. Like for me, probably about 10 days prior to even starting bleeding, like I will savagely want to eat everything that's not protein, unless it's like protein bars that are chocolate, chocolate covered something.
Just more palatable.
More palatable food. Like where are the crisps? Like crisps are the death
Would
of
you
me.
say, I guess it's like you said, personal preference, but it's more carbohydrate and fat
Yeah,
based
definitely.
than...
Like it's the desire to just raid the cupboard, and also like cheese as well. That's only
so basically like fats and
like I definitely go through like quite a high fat stage around my period. Like fat is something I always want. Cheese, I always want like something random, like a ham and cheese sandwich.
And for guys, well, obviously we don't experience that. It's very plain sailing.
Do you have any idea how easy that is for you?
Yeah, it's a very underappreciated thing that we don't have to go through so many hormonal changes each month,
Because it really does. Like, if we see it with so many clients as well, like, they do so well and then it comes to the time of the month and the run up to it and then
7
everything
days
goes to
prior,
shit.
yeah.
It's like,
Stress
I hate
levels.
myself. I haven't made progress. I can't do this. I feel like shit.
Like
my training's been shit. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's only a few days.
I guess
We've just gotta push through it.
this is why when we do our consultations and we get people when they sign up, we have all our female clients write down their days of their
menstrual cycles, because obviously you can just tell not
because
only is your weight
like you
fluctuate.
said, like Georgia said, when you read the check-ins and things like that, you can almost pretty much time it.
Oh, literally, sometimes we don't even need to just double check that a client cycle is definitely those days. You can literally just tell. And it's the same with how I would behave to you around my period. It's literally automatically the same.
Or battle stations.
Yeah. I'm sure some women would definitely agree with me. Because it's just annoying it happens so frequently. But anyway, I think there are times around that, around the time of the month where your desire to exercise or your desire might still be there. But I mean, from personal experience, I very much see a decline the week before my period, and then when I'm actually on my period, like I thrive. I'm actually really, really strong. But the week before, I just go like, what the fuck? I lifted
so
this
with
last
your
week,
training, do you make adjustments? Do you regulate your volume down?
To be honest
or do you keep your weights the same? Because I know we get a lot of high reps, low reps, increased weight, low weight. I think kind of fleshing out how you make your adjustments during.
I would say that the adjustments I would make, maybe the weeks that I feel weaker is the word. I always try to progressively overload my training. I mean, it's not something you do every session. Do you know what I mean? You know, this is one thing actually on progressive overload, which is where, Mark, let's do a dictionary definition. Progressive overload, go.
Is consistently
Wow.
increasing the level of adaptation or requirements for adaptation to your training. So consistently challenging yourself or anything with new levels of stimulus or unique levels of stimulus, with the aim of obviously getting
and that
stronger.
Stimulus could be
doing more reps, doing more weight, reducing your tempo, so going slower through the eccentric or the lowering phase of movements, adding more sets.
Yeah,
It could be
you could be adding resistance in different forms, like
bands, chains. Just
don't
not chains,
ever put
not
a chain on
chains.
things,
Especially if you work in a gym with other people.
Right. Okay. We used to work in the studio
Don't.
that was don't.
Just don't.
We used to work in the studio, which is obviously in
If you're
very
like
very
West
nice
Side
area.
Barbell and you're like with the bros and it's a powerlifting gym and like you can get tetanus as soon as you walk in, then that's fine. Then chains are cool. But if it's like
a private
where
studio
normal
in
people
elite
go,
level
general
locations
population,
of London.
yeah, nobody wants to hear a
No,
chain
guys, I'm
clattering
just going
on
to
the
actually,
floor.
no, it's not even the chains. You know what it is? It's the fact that you're not even lifting that much weight, but you've got to put the chains on it. At least max out the weight to then put the chains for external weight.
yeah.
Instead of just having like 20s each side, thinking you're a hard man, and then putting chains on that.
Just put a 10 on.
Just put a fucking 10 on. Yeah,
just put a 10
literally.
on.
But I'll never forget, we worked in the studio and this guy was obsessed, this other trainer was obsessed with putting chains on things. And every fucking session it was
when you've been at the gym
clash,
for
bang.
12 hours.
Yeah, literally, like, and you've had like
and you've
6
had,
almonds to eat and you're literally...
and 14 coffees. The last thing you want to hear is a chain going up and down on the ground, honestly.
You just want to take that chain and hurt people, you know, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of my female clients I used to train will remember that, actually.
Everybody
One of my
will
clients will
remember
definitely remember that.
Everybody will remember that. We're getting sidetracked today, but yeah, different resistance profiles are needed on a consistent basis.
So I guess you go back to like adjustments through periods would then come down to wouldn't aim to potentially lift more, because I feel like, number one, I feel like I'm going to pass out potentially. Like, I don't feel as strong. I'm not going to aim to do that. I would always go for probably more volume around my period, which is different. It's not necessarily like...
So drop the weight down.
Drop the weight down to something that I can do with at least 12 to 15
let's do a
reps,
practical
maybe.
example. If you're hip thrusting 100 kilos on a
Mark.
regular... I'm just saying, as an example. Sorry,
You've
excuse
just
me.
spoken down on my strength.
Georgia hip thrusts.
No, it's a lot. More than Mark, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's not hard though.
That's really...
I take it back. You do hip thrust a lot. 180, 160?
No, I've done 200, Mark. You don't
200.
need to keep... You don't need
Sorry, I don't...
The logbook
it's not like I
doesn't
don't
need to
keep
run.
tabs. I just need to stare at you more.
Yeah, okay,
whilst
so
we're training.
no, it's just really weird. Like, when we go into the gym, generally, I ignore the fuck out, Mark. Like, literally, you wouldn't even know we're married. I just ignore everybody in the gym. You've got your little fist pump crew
I've
in
got
the gym.
the crew.
The crew. I don't know if the crew would listen to this. The crew maybe
I'll get
do.
them to listen.
Oh no, please don't. This is
fist
just
bump
becoming
crew.
there's a group of guys who like all come from different categories in the gym.
Yeah.
So what we mean by categories is, I guess you could categorize the gym into certain stereotypical
Yeah, you've got
individuals.
stereotypes in every commercial gym.
And these guys are power lifters, and they spend their whole life, and they're literally in the gym for like, they must be there for...
As soon as you get there.
like 3 hours, I
every
reckon,
day.
like at least that. And they do the same things and wear the same clothes every day.
Yeah.
Really, actually,
Which is
kind
quite...
of gross. And Mark's, they're
We've gotten to
fascinated
fist
with how
bumping,
big Mark's
fist
arms
bumping,
are,
fist
aren't they?
bumping
Do you want me
each
to
other.
just boost your ego?
You can.
Yeah, you can. Keep
Carry on
going.
going.
Pump
Carry
up
on
the
going.
biceps whilst... do you want to get the weights out quickly?
Currently flexing.
I'm currently flexing. Why didn't you do that in your posing show, Mark? Yeah, no, they're fascinated by Mark's bum and arms.
Yeah, a guy came up to me and was like, "You've got a very nice bum,"
And I'm not
which
really
I was
sure
quite
how.
flattered about because I've been working on my bum.
Oh, okay, right. You don't always need to seek gratification from others, Mark.
That's true. That's
Yeah, it's
all
really
you need
quite
to. That
sad,
will be
isn't
another
it?
podcast conversation about seeking gratification
Yeah,
externally,
the
and that how
attention.
you need to create your own personal gratification
Okay, Mark,
and
do you
be
want to
your
write a book?
own be your own cheerleader.
Be your own cheerleader. Anyway, the fist pump crew is somebody that, I mean, now I've got to be part of the fist pump crew, which is even more awful.
Yeah,
Like, even
you've
before,
been
I was doing a tricep
indoctrinated.
extension the other day, and the guy even came up to me halfway through. And I was
Yeah.
like, don't disturb me and try and
We're
fist
trying to grow it. I started off with 2, and now there's about 8 guys.
Hey guys, and they're all different nationalities as well, which is
Yeah,
actually quite
it's a
cool.
nice
Like,
variety of.
nice variety. They didn't
nice
even know where
variety.
Zimbabwe was.
Yeah, that's true. They
I'm
all-
sure a lot of people don't know where Zimbabwe is. Do you know where Zimbabwe is, Mark?
Yeah,
Where is
considering
it?
I spent 18 years of my life there.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, going on.
we're going off track here.
Okay, well, this is the whole point, Mark.
I
you know?
guess, but like nobody wants to hear about Zimbabwe,
Oh, but you say you're
except
very
for all
proud-
our Zimbabwean
yes,
listeners.
yes, except for Zimbabweans. Sometimes people could do with a bit of cultural, I don't know, like a bit of a lesson.
I've gone off there. All my mates forgot my birthday. So
Oh, God, so I'm not going to even support
so
them.
I'm
This
not
is it.
so-
I'm not Zimbabwean now. I'm South African.
I'm British.
British. You want that passport anyway? You
I've
want...
got ancestral rights to my passport.
Okay, this is when it goes down. Anyway, back to building muscle. If we're going off of physiological changes throughout a time of the month for a woman, you adapt, okay, and that's perfectly fine. It's just something that you probably need to structure in accordingly every month, and just realize that, I mean, I still go, oh fuck, surprise, it's here, why do I feel like shit, I'm gonna cry, like literally all the time, just start crying for no reason, you know. Sometimes it does shock you, but if you know and learn how to manage it, like what I always do is I always increase my calorie intake around my period. Normally not when I'm on my period, normally before my period, because I just know that like it's just not possible for me to adhere to the calories that I would normally do. I mean, I don't aimlessly track, but I am pretty structured in the way that I eat. So I would say that definitely changes, and that's cool. I always notice that I feel like I'm puffy and don't like myself, but that's totally fucking normal. And that's when you put a big t-shirt on and have a little cry. Anyway, so obviously other changes that could be things that you would have to think about with men, I guess.
Just overall consistency, I would say,
Consistency
and just
and
training
alcohol
hard.
intake. I don't
Yeah,
want to be...
I would imagine that would probably from our
Actually,
experience.
that's a very good topic. Is
yeah,
alcohol and building
expectations
muscle.
with alcohol consumption and muscle. Again, basing our viewpoint off scientific studies.
Literature.
Yeah, well, I don't like to use the word literature because you banned me from using that.
Boring.
Yeah, it just shows you that with excessive alcohol consumption, it reduces the body's ability to adapt and fire the signaling needed for muscle protein synthesis or muscle growth. So if you're getting absolutely blasted every single weekend and then
Or
trying to catch
another
up,
example, maybe not even blast at the weekend, but drinking every day potentially.
yeah,
Is another thing, like a lot. Like, I mean, when we're saying that, like, obviously we're not saying like an odd glass of wine is going to stop
no,
things,
like
but
everything in moderation, obviously.
as we said on point one was sleep, and alcohol and sleep are two things that are...
Yeah, getting absolutely wasted or drinking to go to sleep has also been shown
Yes.
to impact your overall quality of sleep and impact your body's ability to cycle through the different REM cycles.
Technically it sedates you, it doesn't...
Yeah, you don't go to sleep, you just knock yourself out, which doesn't allow you to get deep restorative sleep, which is where you get all the main adaptations from your training is when you're in the deeper stages.
Yeah, so if you don't hit that, then it's going to be pretty tricky.
Yeah, and then you wake up the next day, you're hungover, you want to eat highly palatable food, you don't want to walk, you don't want to exercise, you're dehydrated.
Like counterproductive in
Yeah,
all terms
it's
to building
just-
muscle. And if you went off expectations, that's another thing. If your goal is to build muscle and you want to do it correctly, then you need to be consistent. And I know consistency is a word that we literally consistently bring
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, just nothing works in the world
Yeah.
if you're just not consistent with it.
Exactly.
We know this,
And
you
one
know?
thing I think I'd also quite like to highlight from a trainer standpoint is we as trainers need to stop telling our clients that when they put on weight, it's all of a sudden fat turning into muscle.
Yeah.
Or, your client has put on 2 kgs or 4 kgs of muscle in 2 weeks.
It's just not
That's
possible.
not, you need to, unfortunately, look at your client in the face and explain to them that it's probably not muscle mass and it's either water retention,
I mean,
food
why would you have
volume,
4 kilos
inflammation,
of
or
water
just
retention?
general body fat. You know what
Yeah,
I
and like,
mean?
so
And
it's
it's
a lot of trainers do
because
that to
it's,
try and, I guess, if your client is wanting, no, let's just say, there's all different ranges of clients when you're a coach or a trainer. You know, you've got ones that are just exercising or just, want to just keep on track of things to a degree. And then you've got ones that want a result. And if a person wants a result, then you can't not face it, I guess, face on.
again, you're at
Because
that stage where you have to produce a result, because if you produce a result, you get return business,
yeah,
and
people
return business
return.
means financial security and cash flow. And you, as a trainer, you don't want somebody to think that it's not working, because if they think it's not working, then they're probably not going to pay for it, and then you go through that whole vicious cycle as a trainer.
I think one of the biggest things here is if you are a trainer and you're advising somebody on achieving a result, then one, you obviously need to know that yes, training comes into play, but most of the time with general population, it's nutrition that comes into play more. And if you are advising on nutrition, number one, look, if you're a trainer, technically you're not qualified to give nutritional advice. However, I would disagree with that if those who are highly knowledgeable and have spent a lot of time educating themselves and know a lot about nutrition that could help somebody, they should be able to share that and they should be able to give advice. But it is one of these things where you need to just not ignore the fact and not say like, oh, you stepped on the scale, oh yeah, that's definitely muscle, do you know what I mean? Because it's not. Like majority of the time, as we said, it is the 0.1% that can actually, one, sacrifice to have a goal like building muscle, or two, I mean, like if they're a beginner, again, it's it's a different situation. But I think all in all, like, don't say that like it's muscle when it's
Because it's just building and fortifying
false.
a
Well, it's
negative
false because it's not real. You
connotation
can't.
towards building muscle, because generally people go, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want this to happen, and then you're fighting a negative, going round and round in circles, when in reality building muscle and fortifying your body and your joints by having a stronger and more muscular physique is going to improve your quality of life. Not a bodybuilder, not like super, statistical outliers, just in
Just
general.
quality of life is so important, and we notice it a lot more as we get older, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, as we said at the beginning of this podcast, that I think only in the past year or two has sort of strength training. Look, I think strength training is very confused, actually, to be honest with you, because you have strength and conditioning coaches,
Sure.
but strength and weight training, like weight training is different to strength and conditioning in a way. It's the way people
If you want to
manipulate
get into
those.
the nitty gritty, then yeah.
Well, I'm saying how people utilise the word strength training in the class where potentially it's not
Yes,
strength training.
okay.
So it's quite hard as to
It's
what
very
is strength training.
it's marketable. So your strength train, like most people will, like weightlifting, strength training would be basically a hit workout holding dumbbells.
Yeah, and that's weight training, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
strength training, I sometimes feel like people would use the word strength training
They
for that.
would,
When
they would,
actually,
they would.
scientifically,
I
that's
mean,
not strength
yeah, with
training.
the true
Yeah.
textbook definition, no. But the gyms that we have worked in do classes where they're like, this is a strength class, and then you're doing, burpees and
Yeah, that's
a bunch of things that by textbook definition are not strength based exercises.
Which is not a bad thing, because
It's not a
technically
bad
they're
thing, but it's just,
cardiovascular and
it's just
whatever,
us
but
being pedantic about the true definition, because
yeah.
assuming that you are strength training and you're essentially doing a hit-based workout holding dumbbells
Yeah,
has two different
you
outcomes.
get really upset about that, don't you?
No, I've moved past that in my life.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot when you
personal
grow.
progress.
Personal progress, not
It's
the
just
angry
about
African.
moving and exercising and being able to, keep and maintain some form of joint mobility as you get older.
I see it, as we said, like if the last couple of years has been like the uptake of like strength training has become obviously more and more popular, and for lots of different age ranges, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that statistically, our client age range currently is sitting where we deal with majority of women going through menopause.
Yes.
And another thing which I think hasn't been educated enough with menopausal women and people going through, or there is all of this information that says
there's a ton
there's a lot of people that go through menopause very early. That's very ignored half the time,
Sure.
and it could be medically induced or another factor that comes into play with menopause starting. But it's about that preparation for you to go through that phase. And we say it time and time again, like at school, you like as a female, like sorry to not speak about the male side, but as a female, you are taught sex ed. Do you know what I mean? Here's to put a fucking condom on a banana, and you are literally taught about your period if you're lucky. Normally, your period comes from maybe your mum like taking you to the side and being like, oh, this is a sanitary pad or a tampon or something weird like that. Like, oh god, I don't know. Those conversations creep me out, but like something like that. But you're not educated on anything other than really the tools to, I guess, like go on the pill or something random.
Or you're never
spoken to about
stereotypical when you go to the video room and then they show you like an hour of like the most hectic STDs.
Yeah, I know, and it's just like don't
to
ever
like
have
scare
sex,
you from ever like coming
never
close.
doing anything. And that's definitely a men's thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
that
no,
you remember.
all boys
That's
school.
definitely what you were shown, wasn't
at
it?
Catholic
Stop
school, we
spreading
were like,
shit.
no sex before marriage, and you're gonna go to hell, and a whole bunch. It was
Okay, we're definitely not getting into religion.
No, I'm
right
not
now.
saying, but I'm just saying that was the narrative.
You're married to a Jewish woman. Doesn't matter.
No,
doesn't matter. But yeah, no, I think when you are like going into I guess it would be great if the generations that I guess we sit in, which is obviously we start to prepare ourselves more for a situation that happens obviously to everybody at a certain age, well, every woman at a certain age, but also with men. Your testosterone levels dramatically reduce as you get older. And if you don't, I guess, Mark, off you go.
You would have to, much like, but it's synonymous across, men and women, that you just need to consistently apply the self-care habits that will help you combat things like osteoporosis, not Parkinson's, arthritis, sarcopenia.
Two very different things.
Yeah. So these are the things that that plague the older generation and have a dramatic impact on your life as you get older.
And not only those things, it's the risk and of picking up injuries, or as you get older, you're more likely to fall, or
bone density,
balance, obviously, and these are the things where, like, I hope if I make it to the age that like my grandma now is, that like I'm still like hip thrusting 200 kilos. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll probably need some enhancements.
No, I think we're definitely starting to see more of like people in their 70s still strength training,
which is so good. Like I can't even. It's never too late to start. There's never too late to start. And I think it should be actively encouraged. And also going off that fact, if you deal with like more elderly clientele, potentially a physio or sports therapist to a degree, just remember, I guess, that like we have a lot of people who go to physios and sports therapists, but they never actually give them anything that's going to give a solution. Instead, they sort of keep them there, which I get is the same as business at the end of the day. But if you do have an elderly client, you need to encourage them to start I guess, moving in different planes
Yeah,
of
we
motion, which is not
can't
sitting in a chair. You
we
know what I
can't
mean?
wrap the older generation up in cotton wool
They
and
are wiser than all of us put together.
no, they
Remember
are, but
that.
they need to if you don't use your joint mobility
You
and you
lose it.
don't test and stimulate your muscles, you're going to use it.
No, you're going to
And
lose
if
it.
exactly, you're going to lose
Lose
it.
it,
And
not
if
use
you're
it.
sat, for 14 hours a day, and then people are expecting you to then stand up and walk without a frame, or do all these bold things where you spent the 90% of your day sat down, it's
But
it's
also,
the
actually, we could go off that fact of it's not always, in the elderly that have joint. I mean, we literally
no
have dealt with 40-year-olds with such bad back pain that they take codeine every day. They have done for the whole of their life. And, with a few fixes,
the vast
some people are about to go onto a surgery table for hip replacements,
the
knee
vast majority
replacements.
of working adults suffer from some form of
And
joint
this is what
or
also, I guess,
back pain or
it's really
sciatica or shoulder impingement.
But also, when you go through something like a hip replacement or knee replacement, unless it's something like an accident, you've gone,
Yes.
you've had a fall or I don't know, an accident overall. I think, either side of your surgery, like you're going to be either asked to do something or other to make sure that you're in the best.
Sure.
Now, normally that's quite basic, but after your hip replacement, don't just think that you're going to be getting up and super active
Running
without
around.
thinking about what's surrounding it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And this is what I
Doing
think.
some form of rehabilitation.
It's
regardless.
never just a fix. You know what I mean? It's like, for example, a lot of people having steroid injections for
Anything.
injuries, anything. So many times they don't work, and it's
No,
like
they don't, because it's not affecting the underlying issue. Like,
yeah.
I've had bursitis in my shoulders, and that was purely based from really poor posture.
Yeah.
So getting a steroid injection
Did absolutely nothing.
did absolutely nothing. And should it do something? No, because
No.
it's
It's
not
like putting a plaster over a bullet wound.
yeah,
It's
you're not
still very
impacting
much-
the underlying factor of why is it that way, and addressing and prioritizing building muscle will not only make you look and feel better, but then it will also reduce your risk of injury and your risk of joint pain down dramatically.
we have a lot of people coming to us with like running injuries as well, like ankles or knees and
Yes.
stuff, and that also does come down to the need to build.
It could be weakness in your tendons and ligaments. It
Calves,
could be, your body is undergoing numerous adjustments as you walk, exercise on a day-to-day basis, and that stimulus places requirements on your joints and muscles and ligaments, and if your body cannot fulfill those obligations, then you're going to get joint pain. But it's not just the joint pain, it's the joint pain that is then chased by prescription medication or painkillers that then impact things like your glutathione levels, which is the main amino acid that kind of regulates your immune system. So you're getting a lot of negative things in a circle, in a loop that is
it's
just chasing itself down.
You've got to always think of the overall picture with these things, because I think a lot of people have therapies, don't they? A lot of therapies to try and help this, but actually it comes down to potentially just building muscle or working your body in a range where...
And you don't have to go to the gym. You invest a little bit of money. COVID all taught us that we can do some form of exercise at home, and you don't need much. You just need a mat or the space of a mat. So even if you had to do some body weight exercises or some movements that you can adjust with a long loop band or a glute band, then you can... what we're basically trying to say is there's no excuse. Age is not an excuse. Equipment's not an excuse. Saying you don't like it and you find it boring is not an excuse.
Or if you don't have time. Now, I do appreciate certain situations, individuals, not everybody has massive amount of time in the day, but we I would just like to point out, all spend too much time on our phones. And if you got off your phone for like 20 minutes, half an hour, and just moved yourself or went for a walk or increased your mobility somehow, and did something that was progressive, you'd probably feel a hell of a lot better. So that is one thing. Like, a lot of people do say, I don't have a lot of time. And when we actually analyse it, they do. When you get that thing that you've spent 6 hours on your phone that day, like literally, like it's not something that
it's
is
not
taken lightly.
And it's some form of muscle building habit should complement any form of sport, whether if you like yoga, whether you like Pilates, whether you like cycling,
everything,
whether you like
swimming,
you name it. Strength
football,
training
rugby,
progressively will have a profound positive benefit on absolutely any aspect of life.
Yeah, like we've trained footballers who are obviously Premier League footballers, and like I hate to say it, what they come in like is like quite worrying for somebody that's a professional athlete.
Yeah,
and
it is
things that and then their performance.
But I guess touching on that stimulus is just running all day, and then you're like
running.
They do a couple of deadlifts, and then you can't expect the stimulus of the.
Obviously, there's certain physiques that are needed for certain sports as well. So that's another thing that comes into play with having too much muscle mass. Like, you don't, if you're running all the time, then carrying a load of muscle mass is very heavy. So it's one of those things which is not. It's kind of counterproductive for an athletic cardiovascular.
If you get like, that's why also a lot of bodybuilders as well have unfortunately passed away a little bit earlier than expected. It's just maintaining that heavy muscle mass. And when you are a statistical outlier in any aspect of life, there are certain health repercussions to your kind of not obsession, but your line of work.
Yeah, I think it actually probably moved quite well on to what we were going to speak about, or we said we were going to speak about at the start, which was that how many people underestimate their strength.
Hugely.
It definitely comes down to a confidence thing. I think it's one of these things where I like to give examples to clients where it's like all the movements that we kind of put you through, and not put you through, but like coach you to do, or tell you what to do, they've all got like an underlying factor as to why. Like, in the sense that if you were to like reach up to a cupboard and get something out of the cupboard, like, you want yourself to obviously be able to reach it, and you want to be able to get it. Now, there's lots and lots of people that can't even reach above their head. Now, bringing in overhead mobility, for example, and overhead pressing, or stuff where puts that body in strength, strength and the combination of them improves that, that day-to-day life thing of opening up the cupboard and getting something out of the cupboard. It's the same if you had someone like, you had children, it's picking up the children. If you imagined, obviously the child's not going to be in a perfect deadlift position, but you could practice it if you wanted to pick up the child. But it's that whole strength that's needed.
Carrying a baby around.
And so we have strength. If you're a woman listening to this and you've had a child, you have a fuck ton of strength, literally, not only going mentally through pregnancy, physically and mentally. And it's something that I just think is never, every woman I've ever trained and I have helped become stronger, or they feel strong, like they feel literally on top of the world. There is no other way to describe it. And at every age, they just feel great because being stronger and feeling stronger means you're going to excel in so many other parts of your life.
Yeah, there's so much more to it, but just touching on, they have done scientific studies with regards to strength and picking and choosing of weights between men and women, between trained and untrained athletes, and generally people underestimate their strength by 30 to 50%.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
So if you're going to go pick up a weight and you should be using a 10 kilo weight, most people would go and pick up a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, and it's just, look, I guess it's a confidence thing on, I can't lift that. Yeah. I have a lot of people where you I can't lift that. Everyone I show face to face, and actually current face to face clients, that's really heavy. It's like, you can lift that. You just picked a child up from the floor. Exactly. Like literally, like the child is exactly. But it's this whole thing of like, I guess you are strong inside you, and I think you should never feel like you can't try something, even if you only manage a couple of reps, just to
Yeah.
see like
You just
what
gotta
your
try.
strength is. But I guess going on to the fact that like every female that I've trained to be, to be stronger, you feel just great, and you feel like you can really take on anything. And it's that moment in the session where you do feel strong and you're like, you know what, I've got this, which is very
There's
motivating.
always
in
a
its own
light
self.
bulb moment with every single person, whether it's a man or a woman. There's always some form of reluctancy, and then the light bulb goes off, and then it's the case of trying to manage them not doing too much.
Yeah, not doing too much,
Because then
obviously.
it's
Then it's
once the
just
bulb goes off, it's
it's just
the
like
horse
it
is
goes.
out the.
Yeah. So I think sometimes, obviously, we're not saying like going into the gym tomorrow and push for like 7 times the amount of weight you've ever lifted in
No.
any way. We're talking obviously going off of progressive overload that we spoke about earlier.
Yes.
And doing it in a way that
Structured manner.
structured
And
manner,
enjoyable.
and enjoyable. Yeah, I think you shouldn't just be doing stuff if you don't really enjoy it. But don't underestimate yourself in a training environment.
And don't, if you are training at home and you're deciding to be in that type of environment, don't let it be a limiting factor. You
like
need
don't shy away from a couple of heavier
Yeah,
dumbbells.
just
or like
invest a little bit of money into gym equipment. If you buy decent enough dumbbells and a few bits and pieces, they are a lifetime investment that you can use numerous times over.
I'm going to give a shout out to one of our clients actually, who probably has the best gym set up, Cash.
Oh yes, on the front door.
I don't know, it's just great. It's like literally our front door, and she just smashes her sessions all the time, and I just think it's really cool.
Yeah,
like,
it's quite appealing walking into your house literally to find a squat rack.
Yeah, and we've also got 2 virtual clients as well that have got a very good setup.
Yeah.
Where and I think it's just giving yourself that.
If you're going to train at home, give yourself the best chance and ability to
achieve what you want to achieve.
What you want to, and don't just limit yourself with a set of 4s and a glute band. Invest a little bit of money into a bench, and you don't have to get an Olympic bar. You can get a 5-foot bar and some bumper plates, and
just
kettlebell.
Think about what you want. You know what I mean? And if you are wanting to build muscle and you are wanting to see that result, then things do need to, I guess, be increased on some sides, and if that is really a goal of yours, then like any goal, you need to invest in it somewhere or another. So
yes.
Home is not a limiting factor. You just might need to increase your, I guess, equipment to a degree.
Yeah, just spend a little bit of money. It's the best investment that you could potentially make if you're that way inclined.
Yeah. Just don't ever think that you're not strong enough to complete certain things. You don't always have to be completing full amounts of rep ranges just because somebody says 15 or 20 reps. No, push it, take it down 8 to 10, see what you can push yourself to. Even lower, 6, just see what you can do. Because when you do challenge yourselves, in those situations, you do come out feeling so much better.
Yeah. That is very true. And so just to recap on everything before we finish it off. We're going to do a
conclusion,
literature. I feel like we should do a conclusion so that people can.
Okay, so first things first. If you are looking to build muscle, I think we could say if you're a beginner, have fun with it, because the first year is absolutely glorious of making huge progress. Obviously, if you're consistent and adherent to your targets and whatnot. The most important factors for muscle building.
Well, we touched on, you said sleep.
I think sleep, alcohol intake, nutrition and protein intake. So
and effort in the gym.
I think in terms of protein intake, you can always message us via Instagram or something like that if you want to know what your protein intake, targets are, or what we advise in the sense of numbers and stuff. That's always an easy way of doing it. And then I would say that obviously training stimulus is very important.
Exactly.
And moving your body, doing the right amount for certain areas.
There's tons of things that we could cover, but just for the general population, the main kind of things to focus on, the building blocks, are like recovery, sleep, nutrition, protein, calorie intake,
alcohol
intake, and training effort.
Yeah, training effort. This is it. Just you've got to challenge yourself to make progress in every area. So, don't be afraid of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Exactly. Sometimes you're going to hate certain exercises like a Bulgarian split
and you can
squat.
have the best program and the best periodization and the best combination of movements, if you do not work between that sweet spot between a 6 out of 10 and an 8 out of 10 intensity, and you're actually forcing your body to adapt, then you need to probably readjust your expectations a little bit lower.
Yeah. And then I guess finally is just know how strong you are, know what you can achieve, and just make sure that every goal that you're doing is progressive for you lifelong.
Scalable.
Scalable. And also, if you're sitting here listening to this and you're older than us, or you've never started strength training, as we say time and time again, it's never too late to start. If you need advice, we're here to give you that advice. But it's never too late to start. If you want to start strength training, it's one of the best things you'll ever do in your life. So that will wrap it up for episode 3. We hope you enjoyed it, and soon enough we are going to be doing a little bit of we're going to ask you for some life situations and how we can help you and advise you.
Kind of like a agony aunt type.
Didn't realise you were an auntie, but same thing. We want to be able to help you through your situations, whether it's, nutrition, training, life scenarios, you name it, mindset orientated.
Yeah.
We want to be able to help. So that is the thing that's going to be coming to This Contains Garlic soon. But if you like it, follow it. We're going to be emailing you. And if you need us, you know where we are.
Yeah, just drop us a message on Instagram or an email.
We will drop another episode soon.
Yeah. Cheers,
Bye.
guys. Bye.